The note on the kitchen counter wasn't just words, it was a bombshell that Emery Sloan never anticipated. "I'm taking everything, and the house is sold. Bye." It was scrawled in Jackson Pierce's familiar chaotic handwriting on the back of an old receipt. Her hand trembled as she read it, a mixture of shock and disbelief ripping through her. But strangely, beneath it all, a quiet resolve bubbled up inside her, a determination that replaced any fleeting heartbreak. Emery, a 40-year-old self-made entrepreneur who had turned her passion for crafting into a thriving online jewelry store, never imagined she'd be staring at such an abrupt goodbye from her husband of over a decade. Jackson Pierce had routinely snubbed her business, dismissing it as more of a pastime than a profession. Reflecting on their life together, Emery knew the signs had been there all along, a little too late nights at the office, the furtive whispers into his phone, the way he'd quickly snap his laptop shut when she entered a room. Yet, Jackson Pierce underestimated her. Emery was far from naive. Half a year earlier, she began noticing something amiss with their finances, large withdrawals from their joint account to an unfamiliar account. Jackson Pierce dismissed it as investments for his consulting firm when she asked. It was then Emery realized she needed to safeguard herself. Quietly, she began documenting everything, the odd transactions, the suspicious calls, and the nights he claimed to slog through work as his office building lay dark. Emery had set up her own bank account, gradually transferring her savings into her own name. With help from Hadley Kane, her best friend who also happened to be an attorney specializing in divorce law, she learned about her rights. During their house's recent renovation, she'd quietly refinanced the mortgage under her name, something Jackson Pierce missed while he obsessed over his business deals. Now, standing amid the pastel decor of her kitchen, Emery couldn't help the small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her lips. Jackson Pierce always saw her as a mere housewife, dabbling with business for fun. He likely assumed this note would crush her, drive her into pleading for his return. But instead, Emery felt oddly liberated. The facade they'd maintained was at an end. She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, calmly smoothing the front of her blouse. Pulling out her laptop with a sense of purpose, she knew it was time to set her plans into motion. If Jackson Pierce wanted a battle, she was more than prepared. She had been readying herself for this showdown far longer than he ever realized. Her first clue of Jackson Pierce's duplicity had been last winter, when he'd gifted her a supposedly silver bracelet, a cheap fake, as her jeweler's eye quickly discerned. When confronted, he turned the accusations back on her, labeling her materialistic and thankless. That was Jackson Pierce's trademark move, twisting situations to make her doubt herself, to feel unreasonable. It hadn't always been this way. In their early years, Jackson Pierce had been an anchor. He'd encouraged her fledgling online store, cheered heartily with champagne when she landed her first substantial sale. But as her business prospered, Jackson Pierce's demeanor shifted. Whether out of envy or a wounded ego, he began belittling her work, making snide comments at dinner parties about her little online shop, while toiling over real work at his firm. Emery's breaking point came when she secured a deal with a major retail chain, a pinnacle moment in her career, and Jackson Pierce merely grunted from behind his phone, barely looking up. That night, Emery didn't cry tears of sorrow. She seethed with anger at both him and herself for enduring his dismissals, for maintaining silence amid his jabs in front of their friends. This rage fueled her resolve. With a clear mind and a strategy in place, she was ready to embrace the fateful turning point Jackson Pierce never saw coming. The moment Emery Sloan sat across from her old acquaintance, Kenzie Reed, at a bustling cafe, an uneasy tension filled the air. Kenzie Reed, who worked at the bank where Emery's husband, Jackson Pierce, held all his accounts, hesitated before revealing a concerning discovery. Large, unexplained withdrawals and transfers had caught her eye. "I think he's gearing up for something significant," Kenzie Reed warned, squeezing Emery's hand. "You need to protect yourself." Those words struck a chord, ushering in a wave of clarity that pushed Emery to re-examine everything she'd overlooked. Up until that moment, Emery, a 42-year-old financial analyst now managing her successful floral design business, had allowed Jackson Pierce to handle all their family finances. Despite her financial expertise, he had insisted, and she'd compliantly agreed. But now her eyes were wide open, and she noticed every oddity, the secretive weekend trips Jackson Pierce couldn't justify, the murmured phone calls that abruptly ended once she appeared. Each discovery felt like a fragment of a puzzle she dreaded completing. She reached out to her oldest friend, Hadley Kane, now a distinguished divorce attorney, for guidance over a casual lunch. Hadley Kane, after listening intently, gave Emery a knowing smile and a serious nod. "You've got more power here than you've realized. Stop letting him dictate the rules, start making your own," Hadley Kane advised. Determined, Emery took Hadley Kane's words to heart. While Jackson Pierce believed she was immersed in her floral experiments, as he liked to call them, Emery meticulously gathered evidence. She documented every questionable transaction, every unexplained absence, every lie. The trusting wife on the outside, she quietly prepared for the inevitable storm she sensed brewing. The day after Emery discovered Jackson Pierce's abrupt note, she found an email waiting in her inbox from Brody Nash, their real estate agent. Her heart skipped as she read the urgent subject line about house sale documentation. Jackson Pierce had indeed tried to sell the house, but his efforts hit a roadblock. He needed Emery's signature to proceed. During their home's renovation, she had cleverly ensured the new mortgage was solely in her name, a detail Jackson Pierce had overlooked in his dismissive haste. Immediately, Emery called Brody Nash. "There seems to be a misunderstanding," she clarified calmly. "I haven't authorized any sale of the property." Brody Nash paused awkwardly before mentioning Jackson Pierce's insistence on listing the house, struggling to mask his discomfort at Jackson Pierce's demands. He described Jackson Pierce's arrogance, his assumption that everything was a done deal. Just then, Emery's phone buzzed with a message from Jackson Pierce. "Call Brody Nash. Sign when the papers come. I'll give you 24 hours to pack." His words seeped with presumptuous contempt. But Emery stayed composed. This was her moment. With determination, Emery reached out to Hadley Kane. "It's time," Emery stated simply. Hadley Kane didn't need further explanation, as they had prepared meticulously, knowing Jackson Pierce's move would come. With all evidence compiled and divorce papers ready, Emery's plan was bulletproof. Unlike Jackson Pierce's reckless scheme, hers held no cracks. Hadley Kane's confidence bolstered Emery's resolve. "Let him think he's in control. We'll expose everything at once," Hadley Kane advised, reinforcing Emery's decision not to respond to Jackson Pierce's texts. This was about more than securing finances. It was about reclaiming her self-worth, about confronting years of Jackson Pierce's manipulation. That night, Emery gazed at an old photo of her and Jackson Pierce, captured during brighter days. The woman smiling back seemed from another lifetime, a version of herself who had yet to discover her true strength. She put the photo away, recognizing it was time for new beginnings, a future with her firmly at the helm. When morning came, Jackson Pierce's messages piled up, each more agitated than the last as he demanded to know why the house hadn't been listed, why Brody Nash mentioned issues. But this time, Emery didn't feel the pull of his demands. She held all the keys now, and there was no turning back. The sun cast long shadows across the living room as Emery Sloan sat at her desk, completing a few custom floral arrangements. The silence was broken by a sharp ring of the doorbell. Opening the door, she found her estranged husband, Jackson Pierce, standing there, his expression a tempest of anger and disbelief. This was their first face-to-face meeting since his abrupt exit, and, strangely, she felt only cool resolve. "What did you do?" Jackson Pierce barged into the hallway, his voice a notch too loud. "Brody Nash says you've blocked the house sale." "That's impossible. I've always managed our finances." Emery stood firm, her arms crossed. "Just like you managed to siphon money from our accounts," she countered, her tone calm, though her heart thudded in her chest. The accounts he's secretly drained? A flicker of color drained from Jackson Pierce's face before he quickly tried to brush it off. I was making investments for our future, something you wouldn't get, since you're wrapped up in flowers all day. Emery remained unruffled, reaching for a thick folder on her desk. I understand more than you think. You tried to sell our house, a house solely in my name, and underestimated me every step of the way. The arrogance on Jackson Pierce's face faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. What do you mean the house is in your name? Remember the refinancing meeting you skipped? You signed away your rights then. Emery watched as recognition dawned in his eyes. And as for my flower business, it's more valuable than you know, certainly outranking your annual salary. Jackson Pierce slumped onto the couch, his bravado dimming. You can't do this to me. I made plans that depend on this house and plans that needed my money and compliance. Emery interjected. Here's how it will go. Leave my house and await a call from my lawyer. We have much to discuss, including those unauthorized fund transfers. Trying to collect himself, Jackson Pierce adjusted his tie and attempted to bluster. You're bluffing. You can't stand a chance against me. Emery opened another folder, laying out documents. Like these bank statements? She gestured to one sheet. Or these emails you left open on our shared tablet, elaborating your escape plan? Or perhaps you're interested in the report from the private investigator about those business trips to Reno. His face blanched with each new revelation. A private investigator. You didn't hire one, did you? No, Jackson Pierce. Hadley Kane did, Emery replied, referencing her college friend he'd always dismissed, the very one now a top divorce attorney. She maintained a steady voice while Jackson Pierce began to visibly crumble. Raking his fingers through his hair, Jackson Pierce muttered, "This wasn't supposed to happen. You were supposed to break down? Beg you to stay? Accept scraps." Emery shook her head. "Not this time. Our joint accounts are frozen under legal authority due to your withdrawals. The house remains untouched, and my business was never yours to take." Jackson Pierce's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, color draining from his face. "Your lawyer," he spluttered. "She's already filing, yes, and she's requesting an emergency hearing about those funds. We've documented everything, Jackson Pierce." His confidence shattered. He sank back into the couch. "I didn't think you'd fight back," he confessed. "That was your greatest mistake. You underestimated me so much you never saw that I'd stopped underestimating myself," she affirmed as the doorbell chimed again. Emery opened the door to find Hadley Kane, right on schedule. Jackson Pierce looked up, panic setting in his eyes, realizing the depth of his miscalculations. The sound of the door closing behind Jackson Pierce filled Emery's house with an unexpected peace as he departed, a shell of the man who had once spewed venom in a farewell letter. "I think it's best if you leave now," she stated calmly, gesturing towards the open front door where Hadley Kane, her attorney, stood waiting with a confident smile and a portfolio of evidence. As Jackson Pierce passed Hadley Kane, the arrogance that once colored his every word seemed to dissolve. "Please," he pleaded, a last-ditch effort to regain control. "Can't we just talk this over? Like you involved me in decisions about selling our home?" Emery replied, her voice stilly. "Or when you emptied our accounts without a word?" Hadley Kane placed a reassuring hand on Emery's shoulder, a reminder to stay centered as Jackson Pierce's phone buzzed insistently. It was his bank calling, just as Hadley Kane had predicted. The filing of the divorce papers had unleashed an immediate review of his suspicious financial maneuvers. Emery watched as Jackson Pierce's face fell, his voice trembling as he spoke into the phone. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen?" "No, you don't understand. I need access." His eyes darted towards Emery, realization striking him that his intricate plans were now nothing but ruins. "Mr. Pierce," Hadley Kane interjected smoothly, "contact your attorney. We've amassed considerable evidence of financial misconduct, and the legal system does not take these matters lightly." Jackson Pierce's despair was palpable as he crumbled onto the porch steps, not from regret, Emery noticed, but from sheer defeat. His empire of deceit, delicately constructed, was now crashing down around him. "I never thought." He began weakly. "Precisely," Emery cut in, her voice unwavering. You never thought I'd stand up for myself. You never thought I'd be astute enough to shield myself. You never thought I'd find the strength to walk away. That's why you left a note instead of facing me, because you never really knew who I was." As Jackson Pierce trudged to his car, Hadley Kane turned to Emery with a reassuring squeeze of her hand. "You did great, Emery. Truly great." Throughout the ordeal, Hadley Kane had been more than just Emery's lawyer. She had been her steadfast ally, illuminating Emery's own resilience. With Jackson Pierce's car vanishing around the corner, Emery felt lighter, the weight of pretense lifting. No more secret scrutinizing of finances, no more chronicling of lies, no more playing the part of the agreeable spouse. Now she stood unshackled. In the ensuing weeks, Emery poured herself into the life she was rebuilding. Her floral design business, long mocked by Jackson Pierce, became her haven. Orders flowed in, and without Jackson Pierce's belittling whispers, she allowed the business to flourish, investing in new talent and materials. Hadley Kane kept her updated on the case. Jackson Pierce had brought in a relentless lawyer, yet it was futile. The meticulous documentation they held proved he had tried to launder funds through failed business ventures that were little more than losses at gambling tables. Their charming craftsman home, every corner imbued with Emery's touch, remained entirely hers. Slowly, she began to remodel the space, eradicating traces of Jackson Pierce. Living room walls now bore a rich blue Jackson Pierce had once dismissed. His old study transformed into her vibrant floral studio, complete with an elegant workbench she'd coveted for years. Each change marked a step back to herself. Her sister, Kenzie Reed, frequently joined her, delving into years of memories accumulated in boxes. "Remember when he'd mock your little project at family dinners?" Kenzie Reed remarked one evening, sorting through photographs. "Look at you now. You've been featured in magazines while he's stuck in a tiny apartment." Kenzie Reed was right. The business, once derided, was now thriving. Emery had brought on 2 new assistants and celebrated as a renowned retail chain selected her latest collection. The irony was delicious. Everything Jackson Pierce had disparaged now upheld her life, while he learned the hard lessons of underestimation. Underneath the flickering street lamp, Emery Sloan found newfound strength in the shadows surrounding her. Friends gathered around her like a warm hug, offering more support than she had ever imagined. Hadley Kane, her lawyer and steadfast confidant, often spent evenings with her, a comforting presence in an otherwise tumultuous time. "You're not just surviving," Hadley Kane assured her one night over glasses of Merlot. "You're flourishing." Emery realized Hadley Kane was right. The sharp edges of her former life smoothed over by confidence, she felt more at home with herself than she had in years. The divorce proceedings unveiled even more of Jackson Pierce's betrayals than Emery had uncovered alone. The bank's investigation pulled back the curtain on Jackson Pierce's gambling addiction, masked as smart investments, swallowing large sums in a desperate attempt to reclaim losses through the sale of their house. When his scheme fell apart, his financial empire crumbled right along with it. The new beginning was full of irony. One morning, an email from Brody Nash, the real estate agent who facilitated the attempted house sale, arrived in her inbox. He expressed remorse for his inadvertent involvement and, with sincerity, asked if Emery would aid his wife in selecting anniversary jewelry. She couldn't help but chuckle. The very endeavor once scorned as a little hobby was now earning respect from those who had dismissed it. It wasn't the legal skirmishes or solitude that proved the toughest. It was the sobering realization of how much of herself she had obscured to sustain the facade of a happy marriage. She had dimmed her own light, stifled aspirations, and questioned every instinct. Yet, as she sat in her studio, the sun casting patterns across her workstation, Emery realized she was finally staring her own destiny. Half a year after discovering Jackson Pierce's note, Emery attended a gala for local business owners, a baptism by fire into society's fold post-divorce. Donned in a sleek black dress and adorned with her latest jewelry creation, she was almost unrecognizable in the polished reflections of the ballroom mirror. Gone were the days of seeking approval. In her place walked a woman keenly aware of her self-worth. Throughout the evening, Emery reconnected with former acquaintances. Many had heard about the divorce, their reactions revealing more than their words. The women, in particular, seemed receptive and authentic. One, Nora Blake, pulled Emery aside, expressing gratitude for her story's inspiration. "Your courage made me look at my own marriage differently," Nora Blake confided. "It showed me I don't need to accept being patronized just because I chose my own business over the corporate ladder." The gala was also where Emery met Colton Wade, a craftsman specializing in custom wooden jewelry boxes. Their conversation, abuzz with passion for their crafts, was refreshing. Genuine curiosity lit his eyes as he inquired about her techniques, never once trivializing her work. It wasn't the blossom of romance, not yet, but it reignited her belief that people existed who saw her for the sum of her talents, not just her situation. Jackson Pierce attempted communication afterward, his demeanor oscillating between ire and desperation. The court mandate to repay the misappropriated funds sharpened his tone. His last message included an apology, not for his treachery, but for undervaluing what they'd shared. Emery chose silence, understanding some stories are best ended without acknowledgement. Her business continued to thrive. Venturing into teaching jewelry workshops, a concept Jackson Pierce always regarded as futile, proved wildly successful. Enrollments filled quickly, and Emery found profound satisfaction in watching others uncover their creativity. Many participants shared echoes of her journey, aspirations stifled, talents undervalued, potential drowned beneath imposed ideals. The home Jackson Pierce had nearly slipped from under her became a fortress of empowerment. Emery hosted monthly gatherings for local female entrepreneurs, transforming her refreshed dining room into a haven for sharing, support, and collective growth. Each gathering rekindled her spirit further, fortifying her resolve to illuminate her own path. In the transformed dining room, echoes of rejection had been replaced by the vibrant hum of collaboration. Women filled the space, their voices intertwining with laughter and encouragement, a stark contrast to the belittling tones that once bounced off these walls. Reflecting on that pivotal morning when Emery found Jackson Pierce's note, she recognized it not as the final blow he intended, but the rebirth she long needed. The woman who trembled, eyes wide with shock in that light-drenched kitchen, could not have envisioned the force of resilience she'd discover within. Every tear shed, every late night scrutinizing statements and poring over legalese, and every shiver of self-doubt contributed to the formidable woman she became. Emery's jewelry business, which Jackson Pierce had patronized as merely a pastime, now broke boundaries she hadn't dared dream. Garnering international acclaim and celebrated in top fashion glossies, her enterprise employed a team of 8 skilled artisans and boasted an extensive waitlist for bespoke creations. Beyond the business triumphs, Emery took pride in her metamorphosis into a person she admired wholeheartedly. She stumbled upon Jackson Pierce's note recently, squirreled away in a forgotten drawer. Reading the vehement, "I'm done with your dull life," brought a laugh, realizing her current life was anything but mundane. Engaging in artisan fairs nationwide, mentoring women to craft and cherish their talents, she flourished within a community she hadn't known she needed. Habley Kane frequently nudged her to pen a book chronicling her experience. Yet, Emery felt her tale best unfolded through the strength she instilled in women standing where she once stood. As she recounted her journey during workshops, she saw a flicker of familiarity in attendees' eyes, a spark igniting their own courage to rise. In moments of late-night solitude within her studio, Emery contemplated how different her life might have been had she not heeded the storm's approach, built her protective shell, and anchored to her intuition. Jackson Pierce's note, rather than breaking her, set her free. A letter from Jackson Pierce's sister arrived last week, recounting his ongoing struggle to rebuild. He'd finally confessed his deep regret in undervaluing Emery, realizing too late that his pride had dismantled his world. While a part of Emery hoped he'd glean some wisdom from the aftermath, she no longer felt tethered to his journey of growth or happiness. Her life veered down paths unimaginable during her marriage. The house he almost swiped from under her stand as a testament to creativity's power. The enterprise he sneered at Rose as inspiration for countless women. And most importantly, Emery evolved into someone she could unabashedly celebrate, strong, self-sufficient, and unapologetically successful. During a workshop, a young participant questioned whether Emery regretted how her story with Jackson Pierce had ended. Smiling, Emery showed the simple silver ring she fashioned post-divorce. Inside, engraved words read, "Trust your strength." This journey had revealed to her a profound truth: strength often slumbers beneath the surface, awaiting awakening. Sometimes, all it takes is a misguided note on a kitchen counter to uncover the depth of one's reserves.